When President Trump won the 2016 election, people on the left wing in left-wing media made it a point to tell us that Donald Trump was not only a threat to the reputation of the United States of America, but he was in fact a threat to the institutions of this nation. John Oliver of Last Week Tonight very famously had the "This Is Not Normal" campaign, where he told all the cat moms in his audience to write down on a piece of paper, staple it to their fridge, and on that paper it would read, "This is not normal." They were to look at it every single morning and know that this was unacceptable. The idea that a presidential election went away that these people didn't like was a threat to our republic as a whole and all of our institutions, and we all know the left wing cares a lot about our institutions, and President Trump definitely 100% threatened all of our institutions. In all the ways that he threatened our institutions, he's a threat to our institutions. But I guess all the left-wingers collectively bonked their heads and got amnesia in recent years because they all appear to have forgotten about how treasured our institutions are, because there was a memo leaked of a Supreme Court decision, a draft decision, which has never happened in the history of this country, to the public, and the left wing is not concerned about the high court, which is supposed to be separate from politics, one of our institutions, having this happen for clearly partisan reasons. On top of that, they don't seem to be concerned about the independence of the judiciary, because the left wing is now leading protests at the homes of the justices and some of the justices that voted the way that they wanted, according to this leaked draft, to tell them to change their decision because they care so hard about our institutions. Now, we're going to get into all this, we're going to talk about this, but we got a longtime sponsor on this channel, and since I might be getting sued by TMZ, I need all the sponsor money that I could possibly get. We'll throw it over to them and catch it on the other side. Countless people in this nation struggle with weight loss, and one of the reasons why is because your body's working against you. Every single decade, your metabolism slows down by about 4%. So you might be asking yourself, how does one counter this genetic pitfall when it comes to weight loss as we get older? And the answer that I found, the answer that I recommend, is Keto with Justice. This amazing keto powder works by elevating the number of ketones in your body, thus prolonging a fat-burning state known as ketosis, and thousands of Americans have tried this, and it has aided their weight management goals. And just for you guys out there in the audience, because you're clicking on my affiliate link in the pinned comment and in the description, ketowithjustice.com, you can get 51% off this powder, 60-day money-back guarantee. Try it, love it, lose your weight, feel better about yourself. ketowithjustice.com.
First stop, Justice Brett Kavanaugh's home, where they were greeted by Montgomery County police officers. Then they headed over to Chief Justice John Roberts' residence with a similar message.
So that was the scene of one of the radical left-wing mobs that were outside of Justice Kavanaugh's house, protesting, trying to intimidate him in order to change his vote on a Supreme Court case, again, a threat to our institution. Now, this was actually organized by one of Brett Kavanaugh's neighbors. Let's give her credit because she deserves to have her name out there. Lacey Wooten Hallway. And the reason she decided to do this is because politics trumps absolutely everything in this nation, and if Brett Kavanaugh is going to agree to an incredibly sound and reasonable and constitutionally based opinion on a court case, then therefore, if that is not aligned with the left wing, then we gotta show up to his house and terrorize him and terrorize all these other justices. And by the way, we need to point out that this isn't just one neighbor being a horrible person. Lacey Wooten Hallway being that neighbor who is in fact a horrible person. This is a coordinated intimidation campaign being sponsored by left-wing activists that includes doxing the private personal details of Supreme Court justices in order to intimidate them into changing their opinion on a case where they are totally sound and reason on that case. As we discussed multiple different times on this channel, you can agree with abortion, you can disagree with abortion, you can have whatever opinion you want on abortion. But the thing is, to argue that the Constitution actually protects abortion all the way through, or as Roe versus Wade determined, up to the second trimester, but then it's a states' rights issue in the third trimester, is nonsensical in every possible way. The way that the original court arrived to this decision is that they based it on an implied right to privacy, which they then stretched further to say that there's an implied right to first and second trimester abortions, but it's a states' rights issue after the second trimester because the implied right to privacy is very strict on how far it's implied to exist, even though it's not written down anywhere. And this was the basis of that decision. This is why many people on both sides of the spectrum, regardless of what they thought about the abortion issue, have called this one of the most questionable constitutional decisions in American history. It was due to be overturned. If the left wing didn't want it to be overturned, they shouldn't have relied on the Supreme Court to become a super legislature on their behalf. They should have codified the law written by the court, because this was a law, it was not a judicial decision, into law through the appropriate mechanisms. And now, because the Republicans played by the rules and for 49 years fought back on this issue, it has been in fact overturned. That's what happened. They lost the case. They didn't have a good basis for the case. The Constitution doesn't say anything about abortion, so it should be pushed back to the states. That's what this decision does, and everybody else can cry me a river about how they feel about that. And again, I say this as somebody who has said multiple different times on this channel that I am in the pro-choice camp. Now, I think the United States of America is far too extreme compared to the rest of the world. One of the things that people don't realize is that despite the fact that America has this reputation as this crazy religious conservative nation, our abortion thresholds are far beyond the norm in the rest of the Western world. Most of Europe aligns somewhere between 10 and 14 weeks. Obviously, you could find exemptions to what I just said there, but that's where most countries in Europe end up aligning, because most countries in Europe decided on this issue not through arbitrary means of a high court, but through their legislature and through debate on where the rights of the infant begins and where the rights of the mother end. That's how it worked. But the United States had to do it through the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court think that they are an oligarchy at times. So they decided, based on 1973 standards, that a baby wasn't viable after 6 months. So therefore, abortion's all good in the hood. Don't worry about it. No matter what technology changed, I guess we could never even talk about thinking about paring down this decision, because this is the sacredest of all the women's rights.
My choice!
Rain did not stop dozens of pro-choice protesters from taking to the quiet streets of Chevy Chase, Maryland, to make one thing clear.
You don't get to take away my bodily autonomy and enjoy your Saturday night at home. You can do one or the other.
It's funny how the media portrays these segments. Again, if you were to show up to a Democratic politician's house, how bad would the reaction be? Their home, where their family lives. How much terror would be rained upon you? But they interview this perky woman who's like, listen, you can either take away my rights or enjoy your Saturday evening. Not both. That's not how this works. Slay queen. Yes, sister. Oh my God, I'm so stunning. I'm so brave. Thank you for coming out and giving me a glowing interview.
A culture war issue? Knowing full well that it put people's lives in danger and very likely spread the virus and killed people? You want to talk about that, bitch?
You want to talk about that, bitch?
You want to talk about that, bitch?
You don't get to take away my bodily autonomy and enjoy your Saturday night at home. You can do one or the other.
Let's talk about that, bitch. Let's talk about that, bitch.
Let's talk about that, bitch.
Let's talk about that, bitch.
But what this person is doing is trying to intimidate a judge before a legal proceeding. This is a crime, or at least it would be a crime in terms of a criminal case, and she should be examined, and all these people should be examined for what they're doing. Again, you have organizations putting out addresses and maps to where these justices live. They're out on the internet. They're doxing federal officials, and it's considered no big deal. It's considered, oh, it's totally protected within the First Amendment. I mean, it's a 5-4 decision, and if one of these crazy activists were to do something crazy, then Biden would get to pick the 5th justice that could swing the vote in terms of the decision. But don't worry about it. It's totally good. Just go out and threaten justices rather than contacting your legislatures and discuss this issue in the realm that it's actually supposed to be discussed in. Let's go after the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court did the thing that I didn't like, and I don't care about any principles or any institutions or anything like that. Again, Just think about it. Think about if they would have showed up instead of to these justices' houses, instead of to Tucker Carlson's house like they did in the past, if they showed up to Joy Ann Reid's house. You know how crazy Joy Ann Reid would go? You know how much she would be crying on MSNBC about how the racist mob showed up to her house? When somebody knocks on the door of Joy Ann Reid's house to deliver a package and that person's white, Joy Ann Reid thinks that's a racist white person coming to her door, and she's like, oh, get this lower class pleb out of my face. And yet people on the right wing are just supposed to take it. People on the right wing are just supposed to deal with the fact that your addresses could be thrown out into the public, and violent criminals, because the left have shown themselves to be violent based on the policies that they disagree with, can show up, break your stuff, threaten you, try to intimidate you, break all manner of laws with virtually no consequences. Now, not only do there appear to be no legal consequences for going and trying to terrorize people at their private residences, not only are there no legal consequences for Alito having to go into hiding out of fear of being attacked by the left-wing terror mob that has showed up around his place, but there's also no condemnation from the left wing. You got a few people saying here or there, maybe they might have went a little bit too far. But when you ask the White House, when you go to Biden's representative, the administration that ran, by the way, on restoring honor in our institutions and respect for our institutions.
These activists posted a map with the home addresses of the Supreme Court justices. Is that the kind of thing this president wants to help your side make their point?
Look, I think the president's view is that there's a lot of passion, a lot of fear, a lot of sadness from many, many people across this country about what they saw in that leaked document. We obviously want people's privacy to be respected. We want people to protest peacefully if they want to protest. That is certainly what the president's view would be.
They trot out Jen Psaki on her last days before she goes and takes a job over at MSNBC to not answer the question, thus signaling people out there in the public that the executive branch, the law enforcement branch, the one that has the power to do something about this, doesn't care about what you're doing. And then they say peaceful protests, A-OK, this is totally acceptable within the realm. This is approval from the Biden administration without them having the courage to outright say it. They're waiting to see how it's going to go, because if the polls turn against them, all of a sudden the Biden administration will be like, hey, that's not cool, that's not kosher, don't do that. The Supreme Court is independent judiciary, but instead they talk about the passion of the voters, and again, how peaceful protest is totally fine. I mean, they're putting out the addresses of the Supreme Court justices and terrorizing them at their homes. They're not protesting them at the Supreme Court. They're not protesting them at the events. They're trying to protest them while they're at their homes, surround their homes, and potentially threaten these people. That's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Who cares? Look, they're very passionate about this, and when you're very passionate about things, then it's totally okay. I mean, compare and contrast this to the reaction of the most hollow day in our nation's history, the worst day in our nation's history, January 6th. Where were you January 6th when our republic was falling, when the racist right-wingers stormed the Capitol and destroyed our entire democracy? Where were you when democracy fell in the United States of America, when all our institutions fell in this great nation? Where were you? I was at a car dealership. I was looking at a car. The guy tried to tell me that frame damage is not serious damage, and I was really angry at that. But then I looked up and I saw on the TV at that car dealership on that fateful day, January 6th, hallowed be that day's name, the Republic getting frame damage. Where were you? Where were you? Where were you? Where were you? Let me know, where were you down in the comments down below? Where were you down in the comments down below? Where were you comments down, but where were you? Now remember, regardless of how misguided you think the January 6 people actually were, these people were protesting an action of Congress at the Capitol, which is where Congress works. And there's great footage of a bunch of these people who are obviously being channeled in through the building, not even going over the velvet ropes to touch any of the paintings because they didn't want to destroy any of the property. Obviously, there were bad actors within the group of people that were attacking people. Obviously, there were undisclosed federal agents that were infiltrating the whole thing, but most of the people that we actually saw get in trouble despite this nationwide manhunt for the people that destroyed our republic, for the people that ended democracy as we literally know it, not just in the United States, but the world over. Where were you January 6th? I was in a car dealership looking at a car. They actually only got convicted of minor trespassing charges because most people just did trespassing. But again, That was a nationwide manhunt. Again, those people's faces were put up all over the nation. Federal agents actually terrorized people in their homes for happening to look like the people that attended January 6th, but all these people are allowed to give glowing interviews on television about how happy they are to disrupt and ruin the days of Supreme Court justices in their intimidation campaign to change a judicial proceeding, because I guess that's okay in the United States of America. Institutions be damned. I can't believe I'm gonna say this. I can't believe I'm actually gonna propose this potential reasoning beyond the Democrats, but I think they were actually lying about what they said about caring about our institutions and Trump being the threat to our institutions. I think they were actually not telling the truth in that instance, and that just disturbs me. And I honestly, wow, Nancy Pelosi lying to the American, Joe Biden lying to the American people. Gosh, wow.
Supreme Court confirms leak, says Roe draft is not final. It's all about the leak. It's all about the leak. It's like, hey, how many women are gonna die as a result of this? How many Republicans are pretending to care about the life of a zygote when you have children literally dying on our streets in America today because of their austerity measures? How about that, New York Times? Maybe focus on not following whatever framing the right wing wants to spout, but they can't help themselves. The right wing rules this country. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We don't even need to pontificate about this. We don't need to speculate about this. They were gonna do it no matter what. That's it. And we're done talking about the leak because the leak is irrelevant at this point. What's relevant is what we're gonna do to counteract the damage.
Now, obviously, you guys know my opinion about going to the Supreme Court justices' homes in order to terrorize them, or any elected official or any news person or any person at all. Stop going to people's homes. It's not a good idea. You're a bad person if you do so. But I do want to address one other thing that is circulating around the internet.com, and I'm addressing it to give people who are on my side of the political spectrum the same caution that the left wing never has when it comes to reporting hate instances against pro-life groups. So you may have already seen out of the state of Wisconsin this story of a pro-life institution having their headquarters graffitied, and I believe the windows were broken, and maybe there was an attempt or they were set on fire, and people are running with this story about how this pro-life organization was the victim of radical leftists. And to be clear, we know for a fact that the radical left has no respect for property. We know that the radical left is unparalleled in their rioting and their violence and their disdain for our institutions and their disdain for private property and their disdain for the concept of peacefully protesting. These are the people who are going to create the need or the desire for politicians to crack down on everybody else's protesting rights because they conflate their obnoxious whining and rioting with our right to free expression under the First Amendment. Now, with that being said, obviously, if this story proves to be true, if what is being reported is accurate, I condemn the people behind it, and even if somebody else is responsible, which is what we're going to get into, I condemn those people completely. The idea that you get to commit violence or destroy the property of people that you disagree with politically when they're just speaking peacefully for their position, when they're just advocating for what they believe in, is not American. It is not cool in any possible way. But I'm going to advise a significant amount of caution to the people reporting this story blindly. We have seen time and time again very convenient instances of certain organizations or groups claiming victimhood. I've started to do entire series of videos on this. And I just want to say, this one, we don't know. Let's wait for the investigation to come to fruition. Let's not jump on this. Let's learn the lesson the left never learns from the Jussie Smollett incident and actually wait for an arrest to be made or wait for some evidence to be produced that the perpetrator of this crime was actually somebody on the left before we just assume that the left wing is being violent. The left wing does not need anybody to do violence on their behalf, but that doesn't mean we should bite on a fake story, because what will ultimately end up happening if this story turns out to be fake is this will be viewed as representative of everything the left does going forward that's totally uncalled for, outside of the bounds of reason, and insane in every possible way. Remember, when Michael Reinhold assassinated somebody for being a Trump supporter in Portland, on the streets of Portland, and he lied to the press saying that the person was threatening somebody with a knife because he had saw in news reports this person was holding a knife earlier in the day in Instagram photos, despite the fact that he didn't have it on him. The left gave him a glowing interview, and they never talked about how this was clearly and obviously a premeditated murder. They made that story about Michael Reinhold being shot by the police, despite the fact that he pulled a gun on the police. So the left will make themselves the victims in any scenario, so you can't give them any ammunition, especially good ammunition like staging a hoax. So again, my heart goes out to the people who've had to deal with this, just because this story could ultimately come out where it's not a left-wing person behind this. That doesn't ultimately make the pro-life organization in the state of Wisconsin in question responsible for this. It could be a rogue actor or just a random person that wants to get the victimization on the pro-life side because they feel like they may be losing this debate in the public consciousness. So again, use caution when we talk about these stories. Don't fall into the same trap as the left wing, and let's wait for the facts to come out. And if the facts do come out that this was a left winger, then I will be the first one to hammer that point home and rub their noses in it, because they deserve it every time they do this. Hey guys, Editing Sean here. This often happens after I shoot a video and during the course of editing the video when I'm looking for sources and citations and all that big brain 10,000 IQ stuff that you guys totally understand. An update occurs, and in this update, apparently a pro-choice organization has taken responsibility for the incident that I was talking about. I'm leaving in the whole thing about being skeptical because I think that is really important, and it's something that we should hold true to going forward so we don't get caught with our pants down. But allegedly, theoretically, a pro-choice organization, according to multiple outlets, has taken responsibility for this attack, so this one appears to be legit as of right now. Updates in the future. Now I will roll into clips of Anna Kasparian freaking out just for your entertainment because I like you guys.
We don't even have paid family leave. We don't even have affordable childcare in this freaking country. Okay, and the people who fight against those kinds of laws are Republicans.
And yet,
what do you want them to do with their kids when they have to go to work? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to do? I want them to answer that freaking question. Answer the question. Journalists, ask them the question. Ask them. Ask them.
Isn't it amazing?
Ask them the goddamn question. God.
Isn't it amazing?
Ask them the goddamn question. God. But the second that baby's born, no mandatory family leave, no child care, nothing, no support. Oh, are you poor because your wages have been stagnant since the 1970s? Too bad, too bad. We want to cut funding for food stamps. We want to cut the social safety net. We want to make sure that our rich buddies save $1 or $2 in taxes. That's how pro-life they are. So look, Cenk, take over, because I'm having a hard time even communicating today. You know, maybe if the woman's life is in danger, maybe they'll consider it. Maybe the pro-life people who couldn't be bothered to wear a freaking mask during the pandemic might make an exception for a woman if her life is in danger as a result of that pregnancy. Might. They're pro-life, by the way. Hundreds of thousands of Americans dead during the pandemic because of the intentional disinformation by the same right-wingers who are pretending to care about zygotes and fetuses today. Continue.
So I'm actually going to read a super chat here because it's actually really powerful and directly is in line with what we were
Feckless
saying.
Democrats, losers, weak. That's who they are. What happened to those runoff Senate elections in Georgia where everyone turned out because those were the consequential races? We need to ensure that Democrats have a majority in the Senate. What happened? What happened? How are you going to convince people to come out and vote for you feckless losers? How? Feckless losers. Feckless losers.
Feckless losers.
Feckless losers.
But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, you show them by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. You can follow me on all my social media. Support me via the support links in the description box. This has been me talking about more Roe v. Wade craziness. Till next time.